For our survey, our methods, we used the NAU community as our population, faculty, staff, and students. We surveyed a total of 224 people. It's about half and half for Survey A and Survey B. 114 people per Survey A and 110 people per Survey B. We didn't use a random sample. We used a convenience sampling, which is a little different from random sampling because not everyone in NAU had an equal opportunity to take our survey. It's basically the people who are closest to us who are conducting the survey had more of a chance to take it, so it's a non-probability sampling. The way we scored our surveys was we scored it on a scale of +20, which was completely class conscious, to a score of -20, which was not at all class conscious. Each question on the survey was given a point value, and answers were given positive or negative points based on how they reflected class consciousness. For our demographics, we sorted our surveys based on several different groups, such as what college participants were in, their political affiliation, and what socioeconomic class they identified with. So here's a breakdown of political party in college. We had for political party, we had a number of different people identified. Most was Democrat with 73 people, and then Republican was the second highest with 50 people. We also had people identify as an independent, green, moderate, libertarian, anarchist, socialist, and 41 people did not identify with any party. For colleges, we had the most people we surveyed were in social and behavioral sciences, which is 83 people. And then we also surveyed people in business, arts and letters, education, engineering, and health. Classes, people identified as a working poor, which was the least, the light blue, and working class was the red. And then the other ones were middle class, upper class. And then on Survey B, I used terms such as proletariat, petty bourgeoisie, and bourgeoisie. And then 28 people indicated that they did not identify with any class.
All right, so while the other pie charts were a little bit more evenly distributed, in our Survey B, we asked what kind of knowledge of Marx you had, and are you a Marxist? While we asked for value terms, a lot of people just said a lot, some not much. So most people said they didn't know very much about Marxism, and some said that they knew some. Very few said that they knew a lot. Are you a Marxist? About 75% of the people said no. So it's just another indication that Marxism is not wildly favored in the NAU community.
Okay, so basically to kind of demonstrate how we did the two different surveys, I talked about earlier how one had Marxist terms and the other did not. This is kind of putting together two different questions, showing you how we changed the questions in order for the two different surveys. So when we were using the non-Marx terminology, we asked, do you feel that the average working people would be better at running the government than the elites or politicians? For the Marx question, we asked, do you think that overthrowing the wealthy class and creating a government based on the proletariat would create a better society? These are color-coded, so obviously we take away the average working people, we replace that with proletariat. We took elites and politicians and put in wealthy class. That could also be replaced with bourgeoisie and so forth. The second question, to give another example, was, do you think a revolution is the best way to achieve a better society? The Marxist question on that would be, do you think a revolution is the best way to alleviate class struggle? Again, a better society versus class struggle. And so we did this with all of our questions. Every question that we asked had a pair, and we evenly distributed the points for each question to make sure that we had a fair representation of both. All right, so this is what we determined just based off of the raw data before we do any conclusions or observations about it. We demonstrated that the history of unfavorable views regarding Marxism have lasted, but at the same time people actually agree with a lot of the central theories that Marxism has. And that we identified through individuals scoring higher on the surveys that didn't have the Marx terminology as opposed to the surveys that did have the Marx terminology. So they were seeing that direct connotation of Marxism and then already have that biased viewpoint when they were taking their survey, even though when they were not asked in that same language, they agreed. So the raw data, first of all, survey A is the survey that did not have Marxist terminology on it. The average score was a negative 2.01. And remember that the negative 20 is representative of absolutely not class conscious, while positive 20 is completely class conscious. So that's really more of a middle range score that we're seeing here, since it's so slightly on the negative side. The way that it broke down for the majors and political parties as well as classes are all listed up there. We thought that it was very interesting, and really what it demonstrated was that the majors that have some concept of Marxism or talk about Marxism and communism within their classes really had like the higher scores on theirs as opposed to the lower scores. As far as political party, it was pretty evenly distributed. Republicans had consistently the lowest scores, and then next normally were, well, independents in this case had the lowest scores. Then Republicans, then the no party affiliation, and then the Democrats as well. The working class also had the highest ranking of surveys, which we thought was really interesting as far as the observations go later on. No. There we go. All right. Survey B, on the other hand, had the average score of negative 7.09, and this was the one that had Marxist terminology in there. So you can already see that it's pretty clear that individuals, whenever there was a Marxist connotation, were less favorable towards it. As far as the breakdown of majors, political party, and class, we really saw similar breakdowns as far as who was favorable and unfavorable towards these concepts and ideas as Survey A. In addition, we had the two aspects of Marxist identification as well as Marxist knowledge. And the individuals that said that they were Marxists on average scored 10.2, which was definitely in the positive column and is a pretty strong indicator of the favorability towards Marxism as well as class consciousness. On the other hand, though, people who scored, who said they were not Marxists often scored on average in the negatives. And we also had a large number of people who didn't choose to say whether or not they were Marxist. As far as Marxist knowledge goes, the individuals that had not much had the lowest scores, so they were the least class conscious. As it increased, as their knowledge base increased, their scores also increased. So we thought that was a pretty interesting aspect as well.